Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
A personal favor leads to allegations of political corruption, and a key witness in a murder case will no longer cooperate with the prosecution. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for joining us. Among the other topics we'll be discussing on our Friday News Roundtable, the Downtown Investment Authority says it won't pay to keep Everbank headquarters downtown. Cigar maker Swisher commits to hiring locally on the city's east side as part of its expansion. And a local lawmaker wants to ban the removal of statues, including the one of Andrew Jackson. To talk about all that and more, I'm joined by Obi Umana, attorney and political consultant. Good morning, Obi.
Good morning.
Mike Mendenhall, associate editor and City Hall reporter at Jacksonville Today.
Good morning, Ann.
Jack Webb, attorney and former city council president. Jack, good morning.
Good morning, Ann.
And Ben Becker, anchor and investigative reporter at Action News Jax, joins us by phone. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ann.
Ben, thanks for joining us. I know you've got a hectic day, but let's start with the biggest local headline of the week. This is a story that you yourself broke. City Council President Kevin Carrico under fire because he offered his boss a plum seat on the JEA board, saying he owed him a, quote, big favor. Tell us about this.
Well, for anyone who hasn't been following that story this week, maybe you've been under a rock. It's been blowing up everywhere. So the idea is...
Hey, Ben,
that,
I'm gonna put you on hold for 1 second, and we're going to try to dial you back in on our line because the connection here is trash, and I just don't want to have the entire thing sound like that. So we'll give you a call back in just 1 second. I am going to ask him to kind of set us up on this, but the big outline of it that I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind is, he's the city council president. He has the role of choosing an appointment for the JEA board, and that's in part because of a voter resolution, a charter amendment that changed the makeup of the board. Previously, all of the members of the JEA board were appointed by the mayor, and in this case, now they have split it so that 3 people are appointed by the mayor, 4 by the city council, in the hands of the city council president. I think we've got Ben back on the line. Do we have Ben back on the line? We don't have Ben back on the line. Okay. Well, we're going to have to start with you, Mike. So this is a issue that obviously has been impacting City Hall. A lot of headlines out of it since it broke. And as we said, Ben kind of broke that story. But is this something that you... Oh, excuse me. Ben is back on line 1. Let me take him. Hey, Ben, go ahead. I'm sorry to have to cut you off there.
They said technology to make everything easier, right?
It's supposed to, and sometimes...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you
better.
much better. Thank you so much. Go ahead. Tell us what's going on in City Hall.
I should move off my flip phone. Anyway, so anyway, I obtained a text exchange between Kevin Carrico and Arthur Adams, who's a sitting board member for JEA, where Kevin Carrico informed him that he was moving off Adams as a member of the board because he owed, quote, a big favor to a friend. And in that exchange, Adams responded that, hey, listen, I wanted to stay on the board. I'm doing good work. I enjoy it. And basically, Carrico was like, we're going elsewhere with it. Along those lines, I was able to obtain additional emails, not only just a text message, but emails that show the ball was actually rolling prior to that. This was February 5th. February 4th, the application for Paul Martinez, who's the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, was already submitted to be able to take over that role. And Paul Martinez is Kevin Carrico's boss at the Boys and Girls Clubs, where Carrico is the VP.
So he said that he owed a favor to a friend. That friend happened to be his boss at the Boys and Girls Club. And this has not been received well, I guess, to say the very least, Ben. This is something that after those text messages were sent February 5th, you reported on it, I believe, earlier this week or late last week. And since then, the NAACP has called this corruption, as did his colleague on the city council, Jimmy Peluso. Former council member Matt Schellenberg called it deplorable. Our colleague Mark Woods at the TU, at the Times Union, called it quid pro Carrico. So what has Kevin Carrico told you about this? What has he said publicly about this?
Well, publicly he said that that Paul Martinez is a fine individual, that he's done a lot for the community, and this has really nothing to do with anything that's under the table. Carrico did make some aspersions that saying that there's some political games here at play. There's something political to it. That I don't know. What he referred to was nothing that has been reported. Like he was assuming that somehow there's a political background to this. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but that's what he was suggesting. But I will say this. When you talk about when he said he owed a favor to someone, and everyone's assuming it's Paul Martinez, I will say this. I've heard from numerous sources that it's not about necessarily a favor to Paul Martinez, and that there's a quote-unquote invisible hand at play here. And I've heard a few names, and they're very familiar. I'm not going to say them because at this point it's not confirmed. But there is other things possibly at play beyond a favor to Paul Martinez. Again, numerous sources telling me that there are other things happening here. And that's something I'm working on today.
Ben, we will continue to follow your reporting, but I mean, I think it's fair to say he didn't do his boss any favor in this case. I mean, Martinez has now withdrawn his name, but it's been dragged through the mud here a little bit. I mean, there's all kinds of, conversations being had about political corruption, and certainly it's an embarrassment. I would think that that's not any favor you want to hand to your boss.
Right. And listen, not many people are questioning the good work of the Boys and Girls Clubs that they do in Northeast Florida. And I've never met Paul Martinez. I can't say one way or the other about him, but, the Boys and Girls Club has a good reputation. And yes, certainly, if you're looking to do something for your boss, something like this exploding isn't necessarily probably the best thing for you. But that's not. But this isn't the end of the story, Ann, right? Because then yesterday, and I know we're probably going to get to this, Carrico came out and then dropped a bombshell saying that at JEA there's racism and there's all sorts of other issues there with a toxic culture, and even suggesting that maybe Vicky Cady, the CEO, needs to be replaced. And then there was reporting in the Times-Union, which I've confirmed now, that sources say that at least one board member wants Vicky Cady to resign and has actually gone to her to ask her to resign. So that's the other foot that dropped yesterday and now this morning.
And we are going to get more into those allegations that he raised yesterday and, kind of why the timing on that. But I want to just ask you before we have to let you go about your reference to the invisible hand. I mean, obviously, JEA, the membership of the board has been a very dicey political issue in recent years. Prior, as we said during that moment where we were trying to get you back on the phone, this board used to be appointed by the mayor. All 7 members at one point were appointed by Mayor Curry, and it was under that board and under the then CEO leadership of former board member Aaron Zahn that this failed sale happened, which cost the city plenty, but also sent Aaron Zahn to federal prison. And certainly a lot of sense about, who's controlling the board, who's pulling the strings. Is when you're talking about an invisible hand, is there a sense that there is, still interest in that kind of meddling in the JEA board, in their governance and their control over the city utility?
Okay, well, first off, just so everyone understands, currently City Council picks 4 members of the board. The mayor's office picks 3. And that was changed via charter back in 2020 after the Aaron Zahn scandal. As you said, it used to be all mayor's picks. Now it's split. So, and also people may wonder, okay, it's a JEA board, why do I care, right? Well, of course, JEA impacts everybody. It impacts what we pay for electricity. It impacts what we pay for water. We all get JEA. That's why it's so critical of what happens at JEA. Now to your question, what's going on behind the scenes? Okay, there is a lot happening here. Okay, and it is my understanding that change could be afoot sooner than later. There's a board meeting coming up on Tuesday. Okay, keep a close eye on what happens at that board meeting. That's what I can say.
Well, Ben Becker, he's an anchor investigative reporter at Action News. He broke this story. And Ben, we know you're busy today. So despite the poor connection, we're really appreciative that you did join us this morning. Thank you so much. And thanks for your good reporting.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right. So, Mike Mendenhall, you're a City Hall reporter. This is something that has obviously been a big topic of conversation in City Hall since this broke. I want to dial back just to the text message that Ben got and first reported on. We've got a photo of it that we can put up on our live stream. This was what Carrico, City Council President Carrico sent to JEA board member Arthur Adams. Adams' term is up, but he expressed that he did want to continue serving. He would want to be reappointed. But this text he got from Carrico said, "What up, bro? Hey, I owed a big favor to a friend and opted to put him on the JEA board as your term is expiring." So in that phrase, it does sort of sound like perhaps the favor is to to his boss. But he continues, "Not sure if you wanted to stay, but I needed to do this for my guy. Tab is on me when we link up next," and then a little fist bump emoji. First of all, I just want to ask, it seems like Kevin Carrico is maybe texting the quiet part out loud here. I mean, there are certainly always political considerations. I think things that figure into a decision about who to appoint to a board like that. It's a powerful position. It doesn't necessarily, so it can serve a purpose for somebody who serves on that board in their political future, and it's meaningful. But those kinds of calculations typically aren't something someone puts in writing.
No, and I mean, I think immediately it's striking the casual nature of that text message. Somebody coming from a city council president to a sitting JEA board member. I think that was something I think that surprised a lot of people. The JEA board itself, I mean, particularly the board that was placed after the JEA scandal. If you look at the makeup and the criteria, most of those people were at a point in their career already where they were in their later stage of their career. They already had, they were in well-respected, companies or organizations within the community, former military member in Joe DeSalvo. So, as far as, using the JEA board as a political springboard or as a place to catapult from, I definitely think that after the JEA scandal, there was an effort by the city council to kind of try to get away from that for sure. It's interesting to me too when you look at the folks on city council who are speaking out, but the folks who are also are actually remaining quiet. The majority of the city council to my knowledge, has not made any type of public comment or to the media on this. There have been several that have reached out, that have commented. But I'm really interested to see kind of, how the conversation goes when the new nominee comes forward.
Obi, what is your sense of what's happening here? I mean, it seems like kind of a giant mess.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is interesting. I think first is, I think ethically you should not be trying to put your boss on a board. It is you're too close to that person to really ethically put them on a board in the first place. I mean, someone who controls how much you get paid and all of those things. I think that is one of the things you should be thinking about when you're doing this, in a sense of putting someone on the board. And then the other part of this is it just doesn't feel clean. It doesn't feel clean at all. And it really gives the public a really sense of what's happening behind closed doors. And I think it's unfortunate that these people aren't chosen based off of how they can help JEA, but really chose off of who are their friends with, or their favors that they can offer to someone else.
I mean, it is a problem politically, but I mean, what do you anticipate going forward, Jack? How does the council respond to this? It sounds like there's sort of growing support by some to keep Arthur Adams in his seat instead of coming up with yet another nominee to replace him. That's something that is being discussed by council, but that is something that I guess. What do you think the council? How will they react to this?
It's a really great question. I don't know if Mr. Adams would want to continue. I hope he would. I mean, what I read about him, he really is kind of dug in, rolled up his sleeves, and gone to work. And as he said in the response to President Carrico, That he, what I was intrigued was his expertise with labor and things of that nature, and yeah, so I think he's got a lot to offer, and so I don't know. I would hope that if the council there was some growing resolution or some determination or feeling that Mr. Adams should continue, I would hope that he would choose to do so. What's really it's interesting the manner in which the referendum in 2020 has really changed the dynamic. And go back to prior to that, you're right. The mayor appointed all 7, but the mayor didn't appoint all 7 board members in a vacuum. It had to be approved by the city council.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you did was in 2020, you said, all right, well, the mayor didn't do a very good job, so okay, so we're going to give the majority of the seats to the council who ratified these bad choices in the first place. All right, so how's that working out for you? But it has really changed the dynamic. I mean, I remember when I was on the council. I remember when I was the president of the city council. I would have very limited interaction with the board members of the independent authorities because by definition they were independent. They would come to us for their budgets to a greater or lesser degree, but we interacted through the council liaison to the independent authorities and then through the mayor's office as well. It wasn't any of this direct reach and this politicizing of the boards that were created as independent agencies to eliminate the politics. So we've just we've gone really in the opposite direction. So where does it go? I don't know, but I will leave you with this thought. If he's correct, if Ben is correct that there's a, what did he call it? The invisible hand is out there. Then, you might be starting to run up against violation of Florida Statute 104.31. So do a little research on that, guys. Addresses political activities, state, county, municipal officers. So that would be the operative controlling statutory provision.
What does it provide for?
Political activities of elected officials on a local level.
And
it basically it's a codification, no quid pro quo. But would it apply in this particular situation? Because no, it talks about offices and things of that nature. So, but I will tell you this: the optics are not good, and it's really sad because what we look for on these boards is competence and continuity. Mm-hmm. And what we did in 2020 was we removed the continuity, and will that affect the competency?
I mean, the other thing is, what other favors are out there, right? It makes a bigger issue of, is this a favor he's doing for this person? Are there other favors that he possibly could be doing? So it just really erodes trust at this point.
I want to take a call from Omar on the west side. Good morning, Omar. Go ahead.
I was wondering, could it be that, hello, everyone. First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
I was wondering, could it be that Mr. Carrico is trying to make the leader of the Boys and Girls Club look bad, trying to set this man up in some sort of way and associating himself with that man?
Sure. Well,
more closely than he is?
Yeah, I would certainly be trouble if you're trying to do that with your boss, Mike. And I'll ask you about that. But I also want to ask, former Councilmember Schellenberg said that, what should be being said when you're nominating somebody is these are his qualifications or her qualifications. These are his competencies or her competencies. Not, I owe a favor to a friend. And it wouldn't have been difficult for Kevin Carrico to make exactly that argument in this case, to basically say to Mr. Adams, I've got somebody that I'm going to replace you with. He's got a lot of experience and competencies, apologies, but this is my decision. And instead of creating this problem for himself, this isn't, necessarily the first time he's run into some problems with some texts and emails in his term.
No, it's not, and you're right. Had he changed, or had he approached that differently, it definitely would have eliminated any type of optics of impropriety or quid pro quo. But Kevin Carrico, if you look at his tenure as city council president, there's been quite a few instances that have just been kind of tense. Like, he started off his presidency, with limiting the number of committee appointments for 2 city council members. It typically, when you sit on city council, each member gets 2 assignments. He took 2 supporters of Mayor Deegan, and only gave them 1 committee assignment. Then he subsequently He subsequently removed one member, Jimmy Peluso, after he was protested. Essentially, he's supported laws to make undocumented being an undocumented immigrant a local offense. He also supported Rory Diamond's Big Beautiful Budget Amendment, which had some of those similar elements in it, which also extended our the budget night to like a 4 a.m. deadline or a 4 a.m. time frame. You see a pattern that a lot of his actions have created this tension within city council, and this is no different.
I have a comment I just want to read from Martin on Facebook. He says, Mr. Adams needs to be reappointed. When will our leaders learn they must keep politics out of the JEA? Shame on Mr. Carrico. I guess we will be watching to see what, if anything, happens at this next board meeting vis-a-vis the CEO, Vicky Cavey. It does seem like some of these allegations really are coming from left field. Do you think that this is being put forth as a distraction? What do you think? What do you make of it, Obi?
So you're referring to the alternative allegations that Carrico made as well, right?
Yeah, this most recent statement of his.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I was thinking about this. I mean, two things could be true at the same time. Obviously, those allegations could be true of things going on at JEA, but the timing of it is very awkward. You know, the fact that you were, under this duress and you're now making all these statements, how long were you holding on to these allegations in the first place? If you knew this was going on, why didn't you come out with this much earlier? And so, it's one of those things where it feels like a distraction. It feels like you're just kind of, knocking over the water carafe and running out the room type of thing, and hoping that they don't ask you the question. But, if you really had all these allegations, you really should have brought this to the forefront a lot sooner.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the week's headlines with Obi Umina, Mike Mendenhall, and Jack Webb. We're going to be talking about a new effort by a Jacksonville lawmaker to limit removing historic statues and the latest in the high-profile murder case of Jared Bridegan. But we invite you to join the conversation. You can call us at 904-549-2937. You can also go to firstcoastconnect.org to find how to connect with us via email or social. I want to move on now to efforts to keep a major employer from leaving downtown. The Downtown Investment Authority rejecting incentives that would have given Everbank almost $10 million over 10 years to keep their 800 employees downtown. Mike, why is DIA saying that they don't want to pay to keep Everbank? It's not a time where they've got a great luxury of downtown tenants when it comes to density. I mean, this is something they've been paying other people a lot of money to bring businesses downtown.
I mean, essentially, they don't want to set a precedent. They don't. The DIA board and has kind of echoed some of the sentiments on city council. They're afraid that if they give this money to a company to keep them there, that it's going to be setting a precedent that other companies that also are have thoughts or plans to move out of downtown could come to the city and say, well, you gave Everbank $10 million to stick around. Maybe you should do the same to us. One of the comments from the DIA board chair, which I found interesting too, he essentially said that we would be giving these incentives to make people tolerate being downtown as opposed to building it up or bringing or drawing or attracting new businesses there. Everbank wants the money for security reasons. They're saying that there's security issues and parking issues downtown that they're dealing with that they wouldn't necessarily have to deal with if they moved out to the suburbs.
I want to take a call from John because I think he has a question about that. John, downtown, go ahead.
Good morning, and to your panel, and thank you for taking my call. I go to a lot of meetings, and I'll try to tie this all into like JTA board meetings, JEA board meetings, Duval County Public School meetings, and City Council meetings. And, taking the Skyway. Now, for example, they've only had one train running for 2 months, and that drops you off at Central. So I experienced this. So imagine, it drops off at Central and then everybody unloads and you're walking right across the Everbank property. And so this is just so going forward, I would hope, and even with your show, how many took public transportation, whether it's the bus, the Skyway, or anything, and then I think you'll see just an unbelievable awakening of just the issues and the sub-issues that impact these decisions that are affecting downtown.
John, thank you so much. Jack, what do you think about this precedent? Do you think that the DIA, I mean, obviously the city council has expressed it wants to move away from some of these completion grants. It isn't loving incentives. It wants to start being sort of a grown-up downtown, self-sustaining. People want to come and we don't have to pay them to do so. But when you're talking about 800 jobs that are downtown, I mean, what would your concern be on council?
Obviously, creating an additional vacancy hole. I mean, again, that's going to affect small businesses downtown. It's going to, regardless, irrespective of what happens on the weekends or after 5 o'clock, it's still going to create economic impact or adverse economic impact on small businesses during the day and pedestrian traffic and things of that nature. But I get what they're saying. You don't want, it's like, hey, Daddy, I got halfway through cutting the grass. I want another $5 in addition to the $5 you already gave me, right? So, I mean, I get that, but but at the same time, I wonder what the bigger political issue here is because the DIA we've gone down from Jacksonville Economic Development Authority, all of these different agencies have existed over time. We've reincarnated them, reiteration of the same project scope. So we created the DIA, supposedly independent. All right, independent. They make a recommendation. Now it's going back to the council, I guess. What are they going to do with it? But what I find interesting as well is that this special committee on the future of downtown that was created by the council when Carrico was president. I mean, that's still out there. That's still rumbling around out there. And I was doing some research on it. I guess they've they're expanding their scope.
Was it created under Salem?
I think so. but it was renewed under Carrico.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, you're right because Carrico was the original chairperson.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, again, I wonder what the role. I mean, I think that the special committee, the future of downtown, has specifically in its mission statement kind of reconsideration or recalibration of DIA over time. So I wonder what the political dynamic is at this particular point. I don't know.
What does it tell you about downtown development? I mean, so many people, Obi, have been saying we're really starting to hit a turning point here with so much really big investment coming into downtown, whether it's the CBA on the east side, which we'll talk about in a minute, or stadium renovations or the Four Seasons. There's all of this seeming momentum, but what kind of hiccup could this be?
I mean, this could be a big hiccup. Obviously, losing that many jobs all at once would be a huge hiccup. And I'll be honest, I see kind of both sides of the issue. Obviously, you don't want to create this incentive for people to every time, they can just ask for 10 million when they want to leave, but you also want downtown to get to a point where people don't want to leave. And part of that is maintaining what you have until it gets to that point. And so I definitely think it's a difficult question here. I think city council needs to decide, what they really want to do for downtown, but also I think there could be also ways to kind of really work through those problems that Everbank and some of these other companies downtown already have, so they don't need to do this. I mean, the money doesn't have to go to Everbank in order to solve some of the security and parking issues as well. That can be done by the city on its own.
And certainly this from that same building, Citizens Property Insurance said last year that they're going to be leaving 1,000 employees. Duval County School District also looking to leave. Regency Center leaving. So it's not alone. But I do want to move on now to a major development in a high-profile murder case. And Jack, I'm going to kind of start with you on this. Father of four, Jared Bridegan, who was killed in February 2022 after dropping off his twins with his ex-wife, who they shared custody. So he was killed shortly after. His ex-wife now charged along with her new husband in what investigators say was a murder for hire. Until this week, the state had a really solid witness in Henry Tenant. He confessed to killing Jared Bridegan. He confessed to being the gunman, said he was hired and paid by the husband, presumably going to be a strong witness there. And now he's pulling his guilty plea and says he won't testify in the case for prosecutors.
And he wants to go to trial.
Yeah. So how unusual is something like this? How big of a deal is it for prosecutors?
Well, full disclosure and disclaimer, I'm not a criminal lawyer, okay? But, I mean, I just going through just kind of like doing a timeline and all this whole thing. Originally, this gentleman he pled guilty to second-degree murder and agreed to testify. Okay, and then at some point he told the court, I provided false testimony, and Mr. Chipperfield, his lawyer, withdraws, gets a new lawyer, and again, apparently he then agreed to testify again, and again entered into a plea agreement, and he's going to plead guilty, and he's going to and whatnot. He's going to testify against the two defendants in this matter.
So perhaps an unreliable narrator to this
Right.
point. Yeah.
So he files a motion to withdraw. I will tell you this, and my understanding is that the two defendants are scheduled to go to trial in August of this year. I think that's the date. So I tell you, if I'm the prosecutor, I've had better days. I've had better days. I mean, this kind of does, I won't say it blows a hole in its state's case, but it creates some significant issues, even if Mr. What's his name? Tenant. Even if Mr. Tenant were to say, "Okay, I'm going to plead guilty again. I'm going to testify." I mean, if I'm the defense lawyers, I'm going to have a field day on cross examination of this gentleman.
I'm wondering about his calculus, Obi, because when he agreed to plead guilty in exchange for getting a possible sentence of 15 years to life, that's when death was on the table. At that point, they were still going to prosecute under the death penalty. It wasn't until November of last year that the state announced that they weren't going to seek the death penalty against the two principals, the husband and wife that are accused. So now he's changing his mind because the worst he could get anyway is life. He might get life anyway if he's convicted, because that's, not if he's convicted, but if he pleads, he's already agreed to 15 years to life.
Right.
So is this just a calculus now that death is off the table?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When you read over the case and you look at it, I'm not really sure what this guy's plan is, right, or what he's thinking, to be honest. And this is very, very rare that this happens, that a plea deal is taken back at this point. And if some of the course discussions, the judge was very clear, like, are you sure this is what you want to do? I mean, it was very back and forth there, and then his other attorney left and all this. So I don't want to say I know what his logic was, right? I think there are penalties to maybe being a government enforcer in prison that he may not have liked. There are other things going on here, and honestly, who knows mentally if he's in the right capacity to kind of make these decisions. So I think it's an interesting case because the prosecution had no objection to him withdrawing the plea, which is also another difference in this. And you would think that this would really hurt their case, and they seem not to have a problem with it. So.
Yeah. I do want to move on to another topic, and this is the agreement by Swisher, a longtime tobacco manufacturer located in Jacksonville, a deal, Mike, that they're going to promise to hire locally from the community that directly surrounds them on the east side. They have made this agreement with Lift Jacks, which is a anti-poverty initiative that is working on the east side. So tell us a little bit about how this fits into their planned expansion and why this might be important as a model.
Yeah, so I mean, Swisher, like you said, they're a Jacksonville-based company. They've been around for more than 100 years. They are based in Springfield, so which is right adjacent to the east side. A lot of history there, and so they've agreed to reserve 60 jobs for people for residents, people that are living on the east side. The east side is is a historically marginalized community, but they're a very strong, close knit community. They have a lot of community pride, and so this deal will bring jobs that have an average pay of $70,000 a year. Swisher recently also got an incentive deal from the city, several million money to help with this expansion. It's $135 million expansion of their manufacturing facility. So Lift Jacks started conversations with Swisher about 3 months ago, shortly after, or while the city was kind of finalizing this deal, this incentive deal. And it also comes at the same time that the city is finalized the community benefits agreement that was made with the Jaguars, which will see a $40 million of public investment in the East Side over time. So Lift Jacks is really hoping that this is kind of a this is the first deal of many to come. It'll that they see the city, they see the Jaguars investing in the East Side. And now they see Swisher also, investing in the East Side, and they're hoping that look, this could be a model. This could be, attract more businesses, more companies to take a look at, at the workforce talent that's in the East Side, locate there, or invest in their people. And
you mentioned that they've agreed to hire 60 from residents within 2 miles of their East 16th Street factory. That's of 240 total. But this does come, Obi, at the same time that the city has approved this financial disbursement arrangement, the board that is going to handle these community benefits agreements, funds, and decide who gets them. And, there was back and forth about how that model was going to work. Was it going to look like a more independent body like the Cultural Council, nonprofit, or was it going to be more under the hand of the city? They decided sort of at the last minute, it's going to be more under the hand of the city. Right. And that's been a cause for some consternation or a conflict within the community. But do you think long-term that's going to have any impact as to how this money is apportioned and the impact that it has?
I think one of the things when you have these type of kind of apportionments and is really about accountability, right? And I think we want to make sure that the money is going to the right places. We want to make sure that there's some level of accountability for the money. And I think sometimes that process has not always come through for these, especially for people in this community. They haven't always gotten what they've been promised. And so hopefully, under being on the opposites of the city, that this will actually happen this time. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm with a lot of these things, I'm going to say wait and see, because in the past, promises have been made and they have not delivered. And so, I think what Lift Jacks is doing on its own, which is independent of this kind of agreement, is great. But also we want to make sure that these promises are being held. I mean, the city has given them a lot of money. And so I would hope that these promises are going to be upkept as well.
Yeah. And having an organization like that, Jack, like Lift Jacks, I mean, the incentives deals happen very often between a business and the city. Here you have an agency that's helping or maybe successfully triangulating that, working with the city, maybe using those relationships to say, hey, if you're going to be offering incentives, like what can the community get out of it? How could we possibly yield some benefit? And working in that capacity to kind of insert the community into those conversations in a way that maybe they previously wouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree with Obi to a certain extent. Accountability is what it comes down to. You promise 60 jobs within a 2-mile radius. That's great, but devil's in the detail. Can they comply with that? I mean, I'm sure they'll make best efforts. But the good thing about Lift Jacks, to your point, is that you have an honest broker. This is what they do. They want to uplift the community. Hence the name, right? So there will be an ombudsman and who will interact with Swisher as to the placement of these jobs. You'll have Swisher. It won't be on Swisher solely to go out and find 60 people within a 2-mile radius. Lift Jacks will be working hand in hand and making certain that they have those people available to them and kind of acting as a de facto HR consultant. Who knows? But and that makes them comply with, and that would assist in compliance with any terms of any agreement negotiated with the city.
Like they are going to be holding some hiring meetings or events to try to help connect people to those jobs. Is that right?
Yeah, they've already held one. And Jack's right. They're actually Lift Jacks is working with Goodwill, which has a jobs and career center on the second floor of Deb's store on the east side, which was a project that Lift Jacks put forward to rehab a one time or a grocery store. So folks on the east side could have access. It
was like a defunct grocery store that is now a fully operating full service grocery
exactly
store.
And now they've got the career center on the second floor, so they've already held one event. They're going to hold more job fair events with Swisher there.
Yeah. All right. I do want to move on to finally this topic of monument protections being pushed back into the headlines thanks to a bill by Republican State Representative Dean Black. So this is actually a bill that he's introduced before. It's called Historic Florida Monuments and Memorials Protection Act, and basically this version would protect monuments that have been in place for 25 years or more, put it under the protection of the state, Department of State, and prevent local governments from removing the monuments. Dean Black, Obi, has said this wasn't about Confederate monuments, although that was the trigger for the previous iterations of this bill.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Dean Black is clearly, this is clearly about Confederate monuments. One of the things I think is interesting, because when you talk about Confederate monuments, is that it only goes back 25 years. A lot of these Confederate monuments were put up in the 70s, 60s, and 70s to actually in the civil rights era. So they're not even from the Confederate era. They're from times to kind of basically, antagonize civil rights leaders as well. And so, I mean, it's clear what he's doing. He took the same bill, kind of changed it up a little bit and put it back out there. I do think there is really what we're starting to see from Tallahassee is this need to preempt local governments, right? Local governments should be able to decide what is going to be in their communities as well, and it shouldn't be preempted by Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
So.
He has specifically said, look, the storm has blown over about the Confederate monuments. This is not about Confederate monuments. He says he's more concerned, Mike, about Columbus and Andrew Jackson. Of course, he represents Jacksonville. Andrew Jackson has a very prominent statue in front of the lawn, the Riverfront Park.
Riverfront Plaza.
Riverfront Plaza that used to be the landing. And so that is an iconic piece. It is a very prominent piece and also a very controversial piece of Jacksonville's landscape.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk by certain certain groups in Jacksonville over the years of removing monuments like that with Andrew Jackson, who also has a mixed history of forced relocation of indigenous people. So those kind of monuments, at some point could be under threat eventually too. And I think that's why Dean Black is framing it that way. But like you said, I mean, the argument started when Confederate monuments were coming down in Jacksonville. That's when this bill was originally filed over a year ago. And it looks like that the bill would have the same result.
Got a message from Wells on Facebook. Wells Todd, he said, I spoke at the last committee meeting that voted to approve this monument bill. We continue to honor those that carried out the violence against African Americans and indigenous nations. The question is why. I will return to Tallahassee next week for the third committee hearing, and I invite others to attend and speak out why Confederate statues should be removed. Jack, just briefly, this is a bill with the same language, the same co-sponsor, Senator Stan McClain of Ocala, the identical name. Do you differentiate this from previous efforts that targeted specifically Confederate monuments?
No, I really don't. I think we can sit here and debate what is the specific ulterior motive that Representative Black has. While disagreeing on what it is, we can all agree that one does exist. Okay, so
Right.
we can all assume what's up here. But I concur with Obi. That is this usurpation of home rule, of local authority. These are issues that should be hashed out on the local level in the incubator of democracy, and let it rise to the level of state action, perhaps sometime when there's consensus that's established itself amongst the people in these communities. That's again, I'm a home rule guy, and this is a grab. You want to protect what? I don't know, but he didn't get the votes in the Senate. He's not going to get the votes in the Senate again this time. So we'll see where he goes next session.
We'll have to leave it there. Obi Umina, Mike Mendenhall, Jack Webb, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
Andy.
having
Thank you.
us.
All right. Up next, we're talking to the creators of a new staging of a rom-com based in World War II.
AEG presents Buddy Guy. The Chicago blues pioneer celebrates his 90th birthday on the road this year, stopping at the St. Augustine Amphitheater on Saturday, August 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Tickets and information available at theamp.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com. The Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens presents Art in Bloom, uniting nature and creativity with flowers made of glass, ceramics, paper, wood, and even Lego. On display through September 13th. More information available at cummermuseum.org.
From reactive medicine to proactive health, how disease prevention transforms lives. On the next, What's Health Got to Do with It?
On the next Florida Roundup, the cost of artificial intelligence. There are proposals to build large-scale data centers across the state, but some local communities are raising concerns over what it could do to their utility bills and the environment. Do you want to see an AI data center in your neighborhood? You can email us at radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Danny Rivero. Join us Friday, noon until 1 p.m.
The Trump administration has a new plan for detaining refugees. Meanwhile, mayors in New York, Chicago, and LA move to keep ICE operations out. On the next Friday News Roundup, we get the latest. Also, Stephen Colbert hits back at CBS over an interview with the Democratic Senate candidate and remembering Reverend Jesse Jackson. All next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. A wartime rom-com tells the true story of the playwright's own parents' courtship during World War II. The play, told in epistolary style, I knew I was going to jump on that. Epistolary style is a love letter to the couple at the center of the two-person play. And here to tell us about the local staging of Dear Jack, Dear Louise at Theater Jacksonville, we're joined by Roxana Lewis, the play's director. Good morning, Roxana.
Good morning.
We're also joined by Sarah Boone, Theater Jacksonville's executive director. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, how are you?
Great. So World War II pieces always seem sort of saturated with nostalgia, and a big part of this play is remembrance of the lost art of letter writing.
Yes.
So what do you get from this, Roxana? What are the people in the world of social media and dating apps, and what are they missing out on?
Oh, what a great question. To me, the entire purpose of this play is about connection, and it is about active listening, and it is about being curious about somebody who you could never imagine what they look like, because the art of writing takes time and it takes intention and it takes curiosity to really be committed to finishing the letter, right? It's not a swipe. It's not a first impression. In fact, it's stories of people who have never seen each other, who have never heard each other's voices, and that art of writing and the art of listening with imagination. It's very important because we're engaging imagination and not AI.
And we should say, so this is based on the playwright Ken Ludwig's parents. He's the Tony Award-winning playwright behind Lend Me a Tenor and a bunch of other things. He's probably one of the most performed playwrights of his generation. But so he never had these letters of his parents. He based this off of stories he was told. But the true story is that they had not ever met in person.
They had not. They corresponded through World War II and met afterwards, and they married. And I think that they were married for 50 plus years. So it is a true love story. And I think, just like Roxana said, when you're actually writing down your thoughts and thinking about them, it focuses you. And I think during that time, I know my parents courted by letters, and they were from that same time period.
And you wrote a piece about it as well,
I did,
show.
Yeah. We found my mother's diary from 1942 that was, and the letters that she had written during the war. And it was so a part of that generation. And it lingers down. So, and you also have the actual tactile pieces of paper.
So it's told in a conversational way, even though they're reading from letters that they're writing, Roxana. But you can tell that the intimacy grows as they go from formal greetings and farewells to more intimate ones over time. How does the staging reflect that? How does your direction show the growing intimacy between these two eventual, this eventual couple?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is they're also two very different individuals, and they have really different interests, and they have one is this ambitious showgirl for Broadway, which is very interesting. I mean, this is the 40s. She's this independent young woman who's out there trying to basically live in a women's house and just trying to make it to the end of the day. And meanwhile, we have a young doctor who's very grounded, trying to save lives. And who would think these two people would really have anything in common at all?
Because he's serving in the military, yes, as a doctor.
We're watching them in their real life experiences. We're seeing these two lives simultaneously, and the only thing that really connects them is these words that they are thinking about. We see them when they're cogitating and coming up with their thoughts, but we're also watching them learn about one another. And meanwhile, we're seeing them in their own natural habitat, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. Why was this an appropriate selection for this Theater Jacks season? It's 106th year?
It is. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. I think, we have a history with Ken Ludwig. We have done many of his plays, and some of them before they were published. And I ran across this script, and I love stories from that time period. And we read it, and we were bowled over by it.
I mean, it must have really spoken to you personally because of your mom's experience.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And we tried to get it at the time, and he didn't release the rights to do this play until this year.
Oh, wow.
So we've been anticipating this for a long time.
So it's a great get for the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. Well, the play is called Dear Jack, Dear Louise. It's at Theater Jacksonville, and it begins February 27th.
Yes, next Friday.
It runs through March 15th. Of course, there'll be info on your website. We've got a link on our website. Best of luck. Break a leg. I think it'll be a great performance.
We're excited. Thank you.
All right. Roxana Lewis, Sarah Boone, appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. We also thank everyone who called and emailed today. We encourage your feedback and suggestions. You can submit either at firstcoastconnect.org. And you can also find all of our past and current shows there. And while you're there, you can sign up for the new First Coast Connect newsletter. It gives you a sneak peek at upcoming guests and a chance to submit questions in advance. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett, and our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show is directed by Brady Corum, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us Monday when we talk to the reporter known as Dr. Death. He's witnessed every state execution in modern history in Florida. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Florida Theater presents Celtic Woman. The 4 Irish vocalists will perform classic and modern songs accompanied by dancers and an ensemble featuring traditional Celtic instruments. Sunday, March 29th at 7 p.m. Tickets and information available at floridatheater.com.
This is WJCT News.